then ended up scoring like 60 plus runs in last 5 overs. So
That's standard. I mean, honestly,
that is not standard. I would say it could have done a lot better
standard
than
on a
this.
good ODI wicket. That's
Hey guys, welcome to yet another episode of The Yorker. Uh, we just got our asses handed to us by. Did we ever cuss in this show before?
We
yeah.
can. We
We
should.
have
We should.
Mufi's dropped.
But I'm doing it because I'm really pissed off. Okay, and but I mean, people have different takes on it. Some are sad, some are kind of mad about it. Others have a more realistic take, and I think you'll find out by listening to all of us give our takes on it. But me personally, I mean, man, what just happened? They were at least supposed to be competitive, right? But none of the three ODIs were. But is that where cricket is at right now, where there's a world of difference between home games and away games? Maybe it is. Uh, what do you think, Alfie? What's your initial feelings about just this?
Well, I wouldn't say home away. At least not maybe in limited overs matches. I mean, we just saw India minus Bumrah, their best bowler, and maybe minus. And they were missing Kohli in a couple of games, and they absolutely steamrolled the same New Zealand side. Um, is the gulf between India and Bangladesh that massive? I mean,
That
I don't think it's that big that that they're going to come and steamroll New Zealand in New Zealand, then we're going to get whitewashed. Um, and I'm going to be interested to see what you think, Roey, as well as Mufi. I think me and Rinat are kind of based on what was going on in the WhatsApp group chat. I think me and Rinat are going to be more kind
yeah.
of Akmoth in this little discussion here. But I'm not that troubled by this performance because, and in a way, I think it's good because we know that the Bangladesh team, our team, we struggle with complacency. Like, anytime we think that oh, we can't lose this game or we can't do, this is not going to happen or that's not going to happen, like a negative thing, our boys will always surprise us as to who they can lose to and how. We all remember just a few, months ago, we lost to Zimbabwe in a test match at home. I mean, uncalled for on a pitch with turn. And it was because there was no, it was simply due to complacency. A few years ago we lost to Hong Kong at home in a T20 match. So
And many years ago we lost to Canada in the World Cup. You remember that?
and many years ago we lost to Canada in the World Cup. That was actually the very first game that I followed Bangladesh cricket, like as an actual fan. I was introduced to the Bangladesh team several years earlier, but like that was when I actually started following Bangladesh cricket. Was that loss to Canada, and that was, oh my god, that was such a shocker.
Yeah, I mean,
But
yeah, definitely. I mean, the historical perspective is definitely appreciated, where we're at a point where people lose their ship really fast
yeah,
if you fail to be competitive even in away games. But in the same light, uh, higher expectations are to be expected for a team like us. We're seventh.
oh no, absolutely. You remember that just a week ago or 10 days ago, whenever we had the podcast, I was like, yeah, we can win the series 2-1. I still stand by that. The fact that we lost, I'm not that disappointed because I also knew, I may not have mentioned it on the podcast, that we could very well lose all three games also.
But the margin shouldn't have been that much. What do you say, Rina?
Oh, for sure not. I mean, you look at our ODI performances over the past few years, especially since the fact that we even made the semifinals for a Champions Trophy, which was no easy feat, right? So based on that, it should have been a lot more competitive. But again, I mean, I'm not gonna try to put excuses, but if we look at the preparation that went in to this series. I think A, our boys were very exhausted, and then B, we just didn't have the right preparation. It's a combination of both, I think. I
Yeah.
don't think there was any complacency particularly, but then again, the whole team has been active since the Asia Cup, literally. And after Asia Cup, I think they have 2 or 3 weeks, and after that, they had two big tours followed by a big tournament, which is always tough. The tournament BPL itself is very tough because there are because most of the teams they play almost day to day, so it's tough. So and then coming to a completely different condition without any game practice, it was tough. I mean, by the time they figured it out, it was too late. I don't even think they figured it out in the first place. So and I know it sounds like we're giving excuses, but again, you have to, like, you look at India. They came to New Zealand after playing a long ODI series in Australia, right? That's what the preparation. That's the kind of preparation we're talking about. That's what
Yeah.
should have happened if we didn't have BPL. Let's say if we had like some A2 in Australia or something like that, it would have been. I genuinely believe it would have been a lot better.
100%, 100%. In fact, in the what do you call it, the WhatsApp chat group, I was saying that it would be better if it was a 7-day ODI series. And some people said, "Oh, why'd you say that? We're just gonna get our asses kicked." I'm like, wait, hold on, dude. No, because we should at least get the chance to kind of get accustomed to the conditions. And for a strong ODI side like us, our management should take a greater stance when it comes to these series. I mean, we shouldn't get these little tiny 3 match. It just doesn't look good. It should be at least 5 matches where we have our hopes up going into the third ODI. Yeah.
It should be, and I think that's where the BCBs dropped the ball. At home, we don't play 5-match ODI series with anyone. We don't play away either. Thank God somehow they were able to get 3 tests on this tour. And I don't care if we lose all of them by an innings. We're not going to get better unless we get exposure to these types of conditions. When you compare us to other teams, and people will compare us to, I can see a lot of people from certain countries. I don't want to name any countries. And they're going to say, and they're going to laugh, and and they're going to probably be poking a lot of fun, and saying, "Oh, this is, Bangladesh, they're, they think that they're the second best team in Asia, ODI team." But the thing is that when you're comparing to some other countries, and let's forget about India because India is, they're nobody disputes that they're the best team in Asia. They're probably the best team in the world.
Yeah.
But you have other teams, and I'm not gonna, I don't want to name names. They're touring constantly. If they're touring England for 5 ODIs, 4 tests, they're touring, South Africa, they're touring New Zealand on a regular basis. We toured New Zealand, and the last time we've toured these types of conditions was in South Africa, and that was a year and a half ago now. That was September 2017. That was like 17 months ago. And I think I'm trying to think. Yeah, we haven't toured these types of conditions in that amount of time. And I think the only away tour we've had in between that is West Indies. Maybe we've had some other away tours, but the West Indies is very similar conditions to Bangladesh for the most part, at least these days. So we're so I don't think that that's necessarily a great comparison. I mean, and I'll be honest, Bangladesh fans bring these comparisons on themselves, but now that it's after the fact, we can now say some things that before it's just like, oh well, we could win the series 2-1, or we could win this, etc. And we could have if our top 3 had performed, if our big 3 had performed. I think we got a grand total of maybe 80 runs from the big 3 in 6 innings, and no team is going to win if that happens. And full credit to New Zealand for they have one of the better bowling attacks in one-day cricket, and they were able to subdue our big 3 in that fashion. So
Yeah. Mufi, what do you?
Well, it's time for me to unpack.
yeah, I
All
see.
right, let's do this.
You have a long batting lineup, just like
Open this
Long
shit.
batting lineup. All right, first of all, I don't agree with a lot of these excuses. First of all, going back to days of losing to Canada, Hong Kong, those are long days, many years ago, many moons ago. we're not in the same standard anymore. We're talking about 15, 20 years ago. Second of all, like not playing in those conditions, our players not having a break. We are Look at India, look at Pakistan, look at Sri Lanka. They're playing constantly for the last 6, 7 months. So they're not. We complain at the same time that we don't get enough matches, and when we do get enough matches, we lose, and then we complain we're playing way too many matches. It doesn't. It's not the same
Yeah,
thing. So
that's a dumb excuse. But
yeah.
that's
Our
yeah. That
openers,
was
Tamim and Leeton, scoring 9 runs in the 3 ODIs, both of them in 6 innings, scoring 9 runs. That's not an excuse. You are coming out of playing Asia Cup, PPL, and you know what's coming up, and Tamim coming down on the second ball, chasing 330, a player with more than 10 years of international experience facing Saudi coming down. That was just a wild shot. Nothing, no plan, nothing. He just came down the track trying to hit the ball. So you don't expect that from Tamim. Like these are not excuses that we're playing way a lot of games. It was just a mental block, I think. And the overall, if you look at the 3 ODIs, the mental attitude of our players were very poor. I've seen the games, and while we're fielding, while we're batting, there was that intensity was not there. I don't know what was lacking. There was a lot of that rhythm, that harmony was not there. So maybe it stemmed from Mashrafi. I don't know. Like it seemed the team was not at its best, nowhere at its best. And it's not an excuse when Fizz goes for 93 runs in 10 overs. Like he was going for a high economy rate up until 7 overs, 8 overs, but Mash saw he was struggling and let him ball for 10 overs. And guess what? He got tonked in the last over, I think, for like 15 to 20 runs, and he ended up with 93 runs in 10 overs. So
but Mash didn't have a choice. Who's he going to bowl? Mamadullah at the last over.
no,
Rubel also bowled. Rubel also
yeah,
had a big over.
Rubel had some overs left. Mash had some over left because he bowled Riyadh as the sixth bowler. I think Riyadh bowled 3 overs, so that was 3 overs from a lot of the main 5 bowlers. So I think one of them bowled less than 10. So
Your main bowlers have to bowl their 10 overs, and I think regardless of how, unless there's an exceptional circumstance, but Riyadh was not bowling particularly well.
Riyadh was not one of the top 5. He was the number 6 bowler. So he bowled 3 overs. So that means that one of the top 5 bowled less than 10.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and that generally happens with us, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that Mash, I think he should. Yeah.
So I mean, he saw that Fizz was struggling, and there was like we all saw that he was struggling. Yeah, he got some wickets, but those wickets are coming from like full tosses. So so that was another very poor choice at the end, and then ended up scoring like 60 plus runs in last 5 overs. So
that's standard. I mean, honestly,
that is not standard out. So it could have done a lot better
standard
than this.
On a good ODI wicket. That's standard because when this was the third ODI was important in the sense that this is the type of we're going to be on average we're going to be chasing 330 scores in the World Cup. And that's probably maybe even
no. If we go with that idea that we have to chase 330 and then we can bowl like our bowlers can like restrict them less than 300, then what's the point of like coming and showing up? So we have to have a plan to like restrict the team between 250 and 300. I know the grounds are small, but even like we saw that 330 is not a par score. It's way above par score. So, and the way we batted, it was disgrace, I would say. Like, we lost 3 wickets in, like, 1 run or 2 runs. Like, Shomo and Leeton had no idea as well. Like, we saw in the first ODI and the second ODI that the first 10 overs, they're Saudi and bowl, they're swing bowlers. So, if you see them off, it gets a lot easier after. That's why, like Shabir, I mean, all credit to him. He played well, but it became a lot easier. Saifuddin was playing with a lot more ease than Tamim and Leeton because it gets easier. So we saw in the first and the second ODI, this player should have known that. It's not rocket science that in those conditions, these are like normal things. So that's why I think.
By the third ODI, the fielding also completely.
Yeah, a lot of overthrows. That intensity was not there. So
I thought the bowling intensity was pretty good for the first 20, 25 overs. There was a period when they were putting together some pressure, some dot balls.
we had
Um,
some like couple of
you
good
know, the
period in the middle, but overall it was
I,
not good enough.
we gradually worsened as each ODI went on. The only thing I would say, the positives, the the things you could take away from the series was the lower order, or you could call the middle lower order, with Saifuddin, Miraz, and
Mithun and Sabir, yeah.
yeah, those guys were all right, but
Those guys stepped up, but yeah, as you said, the collapse of the top order up until like early, yeah. So Amim, Liton, Shomo, Mushfiq, and Riyad, all five. So those five players,
right. And again, I kind of said this before. I know you guys are a bit harder on Tamim, but simply because of the fact, if I analyze them over the last 3 years, this could easily be put down as an aberration. No biggie. To me, it's
no,
could be.
I'm putting it down as an aberration for the big three's failures. Maybe not, maybe a little bit less so Riyadh, but even Riyadh in the last 3 or 4 years, even a Riyadh
It can
hater
be an
has to
aberration, but
acknowledge
I was
he's
really
batted
frustrated
very
the
well.
way.
cut Riyadh that slack. He doesn't have a 57 average like Tamim since the World Cup. He's
No,
more
no, no,
like
but
35, 37.
but Roey, Riyadh is batting at 6 or 7. He can't. It's going to be difficult, relatively more difficult. He's not getting the same opportunities that Mushfiq and Tamim are getting. Riyadh has Riyadh has stepped up though in the last 3 since the last World Cup. In a lot of pressure situations, he stepped. The numbers won't suggest it. He's only averaging about 35
Mm-hmm.
in the last, since the last World Cup, or maybe mid 30s. That's not bad, but it's not anything great either. You have Mushi who was averaging close to 50. Tamim was averaging like 60 coming into the series.
Right.
So, but Riyadh,
No,
quality of those runs.
no,
Yeah.
no, I'll accept that. Actually, I don't want to focus on Riyadh. The reason I brought it up was actually kind of to hammer Shomo and Liton because, those are my guys. Shomo was my guy, and Liton was my guy at one point. And I keep, like, as a fan, I want to see them do good. I've defended them against other people who said they should have been dropped. They should have never, ever been selected again. But, man, they're making me, look like a fool right now. Yeah, Mufi, you're saying something.
No, I mean, going back to the aberration thing, yes, it could have been a bad series for Tamim, but the way he played in the entire series, in the second ODI, I think, strike rate was around 40 or close to 50, and then he got a good ball and got LBW. But in the third ODI, he comes out blasting on the second ball. His overall approach was not inspiring, at least in my eyes. Like you expect a lot more
Yeah.
then I mean, I get in the first ODI he got a pitch of a ball from Bolt and he got out. So that was the first ODI. That can be an aberration. One ODI, his first match of the tour. Second ODI he was still struggling, and the third ODI just no excuse at all. So I don't know. An aberration can you call 3 match an aberration? Can you call 5 match an aberration? So it all depends.
Considering a 3-year period, you can when he has an average of 50.
Yeah.
These 3 matches
Yeah.
really won't hurt him that much. No, but if you're moving away from the point, I want to focus on Shomo and Liton.
Okay, if you want to talk about Shoma and Liton, so yeah, sure. So Liton is just a lost case.
What did they do? Like, okay, Tamim got that big fat zero, and he himself is admitted he's a nervous starter. So what a wonderful opportunity would it have been for Shomo to say, hey,
Right. I mean, I was kind of going on Tamim because he has a high standard. Like I rate Tamim higher than Liton and Shomo, so he has established himself as a player to be measured at a high standard. Going back to Liton and Shomo, they have no standards. So if they score 0, if they score 10, like don't give a fuck, to be honest. So they're just you can like replace Shomo with Anamol, Liton with like Mominul and something. The results are going to be the same. So like he's averaging what, less than 20 after playing
that's hard. That's hard to argue with. That's hard to argue
like
against.
After playing close to like 30 ODIs. So.
Well, I think that Rinat mentioned a couple of podcasts ago that, and actually he's mentioned it more than once, that when you have Liton, Shomo, and Sabir in the squad, and I'm trying to think if there was, maybe Mithun is in that bracket, maybe not anymore in that bracket, but that makes it very difficult because on any given day, all 4 of those guys could flop. and then you're basically just left with the big four that have to score all the runs.
And more often than not, they do flop at the same time.
No, that's what Rinat was saying. Rinat was saying that it's almost like these are guaranteed non-performers, almost. And
this is one of those series where everything just collapses, goes out of the window. It makes us rethink everything. And Rinat, I was thinking about this. Can we fix like a set strategy going forward? Like this many bowlers, this many all-rounders, this many specialist bowlers? Because these questions are going to come up as we approach, the World Cup.
I don't think there's any strategy for nerves. I think that's all it was for every single player. I mean, yeah, even Liton and Shomo, like these guys are not the greatest players, but again, they're not that bad of a player to score 3 runs in 3 games, right? It's nerves. Like they when you see the way how they got out, they literally had no clue on what they were doing. Liton had no clue in any of those dismissals. Shomo had no clue in what he was doing in any of those dismissals. So it's nerves, and I don't know. There is no solution for nerves at this point, right? You can just pray to God and be like, okay, this one day they're gonna walk out with all confident and everything. But I just want to go back to one thing about Tamim though, and I'm sorry to bring it up again. Having played cricket, I kind of knew why Tamim was doing what he did in the third ODI. When you are not confident, when you are sort of nervous about what kind of swing that's coming in, or what kind of how lethal the deliveries are going to be, you kind of go after the bowling from the beginning, just because it's such a small ground, it's a 65-meter ground. You slash something that's going to run away for a 4 with no fielders outside. That's what he was trying to do. Do I agree with it? I don't. But then for him, having failed the first 2 games, he desperately wanted to get some runs on the board to get those early jitters out of the way. And for me, I don't know if I like that strategy, but again, I understand it as a player, as someone that been in the field and know what it feels like to be in that situation where you have the pressure to start scoring runs. I understand that. Going back again, it's like what Mufi said. Doesn't matter who you replace Shomo or Liton with right now. It's not gonna make any difference.
I can get Handan Sharkar right now. It would be the same thing.
It will be the same thing, exactly. So I don't know if just switching players. He does. I think he does. So
yeah.
No, not in internationals. I think not in internationals. Maybe in domestic.
Shomo Sharkar with Handan Sharkar.
Anyway,
they played at a time when Bangladesh had 1 century in their entire team history in ODIs, and that was Mehrab Hussain Opi.
Yep, against Zimbabwe.
Against Zimbabwe. So, because Ashraful in Cardiff, that was the 2nd century by a Bangladesh player. Not Ashraful's 2nd century. It was the 2nd century for the team, for the nation.
I do remember a mean 80 by Handan Sharkar against Australia in tests. That's what I remember. Anyway,
70 odd, 76, 74, something like that. Yeah, in Darwin or Cairns. Yeah, it was one of those test matches there.
All right, Rina, sorry to sidetrack you. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so I don't know how to. I have no idea, honestly, on how they're going to approach this. But again, I've said this before the series even started. If the boys start off with a good momentum, it's going to carry on. If they don't, it's going to go the opposite way. And that's exactly what happened. Yeah. I think it's very crucial that whatever series we play, even for the World Cup, we have to start on a good note. Because if not, our boys are not strong enough to come back from a low. They're good enough to keep a momentum going. That's the kind of team they are. And I want to say something in the defense for the seniors. And I'll tell you this. That gone are the days when 100 or 250s can get the score to a 230, 240, and you have a game. Right now, when every batsman comes up to bat, when Mushi comes up to bat, when Riyad comes out to bat, they know that they need to score in a way that they still get to 300, right? So, they can't, because they know if they just get bogged down and they play defense, and they score, they huff and puff their way to a 220, they're going to lose that game anyways. So they have to attack. And that's something that I like about our players now, because, no matter what, they don't stop scoring. They still go after the bowlers, because you have to now. You
Yeah,
can do
but
damage
to
control.
score 300, you don't have to. You just can come in and start like hitting at like from like the 10 over, the 20 over
No,
mark. You have
I
plenty of
I
time.
don't.
You can do that in the last 15 to 20 overs.
Right, right.
So I think we're taking way too much risk. Just at the that idea, we have to score 300, and then we have to have a very high like the strike rate up until like the 30 overs. That's not true.
No, okay. No, Mufi. Who do we have as our finisher?
No, but the same players.
No, no,
The
no. But
same players.
who? No, no, no. Okay, no. Just tell me who do we have as a finisher?
Riyadh, and to be honest, I don't see
No,
anyone else.
Riyadh is playing number 5. That's not a finisher right now.
In this series, I don't know.
Five,
Saifuddin,
six, 5-6. Yeah.
Saifuddin, Miraz, Mashrafi. Those are the
Yes.
finishers.
So say they know. So they know that they're you.
But they also
They
have to
can't.
know that
They
that
can't
if
be
they,
scoring.
but if they lose those early wickets, there's no one else to even get to 200.
Look,
don't think- I don't-
Mufi, I think the thing is this: when you're chasing 330, and
Okay,
and
so
believe me,
there's
we're going to be chasing 330 a lot in the World Cup. When you're chasing 330, you can't be 35 without
No,
loss
I get it.
after
If you're
10
chasing
overs.
it, then okay. But if you're batting first, which we did in the first two ODIs, then I think we don't need to take that many risk up until the
I don't-
30th over. So
Okay,
there's
I
I
plenty
don't
of
think
time to
anyone.
do
I don't
that.
think anyone was blind slugging though. I don't
Yeah,
think anyone
yeah.
was blind slugging.
Karim got out
yeah.
for a couple of good deliveries, and maybe he's just out in bad form. Liton is just
But a lot of
not-
times in the first and
not that
second
good.
ODI,
Not that good.
we saw Mushfiq coming down the track, Riyadh coming down the track, Shomo, he tried to hit a bouncer, he hooked a bouncer and he got out. So those
Shomo
are
threw his
aggressive.
whistle.
So those are aggressive shots.
Yeah. No, I understand what Mufi's saying. There's something to be said about getting set, and all the good batsmen. I've seen them do this. Like even Tendulkar, like he was like not for 24 deliveries. He just feel
You
like
can't. You cannot
I'm
bring
just
Tendulkar
saying
into it.
play low risk shots. Like look at players right now like Kohli, Kane Williamson, Joe Root. Those players don't play a lot of those risky shots in the first up until the 30 or 35 overs.
there's an
This is
No.
This is the point here. Mufi, what happened here? We
They don't
got
come
out,
down
but-
the track though. That's the thing. I mean, there's no
Well,
point of doing
well,
that.
there's a reason
Okay.
for that. The
Coming
bowling
down
was
the track
good.
or moving the feet, it does not have much to do with being aggressive, right? It's not like
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
coming down the track. People move their feet.
No,
a
moving
lot.
the feet is
Any modern batsman,
moving
any
feet
modern
is not
batsman,
the same as coming down the track. Like Stephen Smith, he shuffles a lot, so that's different than coming down the
This
track.
is what happened. Mufi, this is
I
what
don't know.
happened.
Mushi never got out to coming down the track. He got out in all three games because he stayed back. So that was actually the opposite. Riyadh only got out coming down the track in the last match. The other two not so much. Tamim only got out coming down the track on one
Once.
game. So you
Yeah.
can't really say that they
I'm
all
just saying that
got out.
overall they were being too aggressive. Like
Well,
they-
Mufi, I think what happens is that the bowling was too good. When the bowling is too good, you're not able to play the high percentage shots that are in your comfort zone. Because
bowling
they probably,
was okay. Bowling was good, but I wouldn't say it was too good. We saw like
no, too good for
Shabir
us.
was-
Too good for us.
no, but
No,
No,
our
bowling
same
was too
batsmen.
good for us. Bowling was too good for us.
Shabir was
Yeah, give it everything.
good
I'm
in
not-
the second and the third ODI.
I'm not saying that.
Saifuddin was quite comfortable playing in the third ODI.
Well, conditions eased out there. What I'm saying is this.
Exactly. So that's the point. If those senior players,
What
Mushfiq
I'm
and
saying is
Riyadh,
that
just could see that ball off for the first 15, 20 overs, they had plenty of times, that last 30 overs, to take advantage of.
Yeah, I feel Mufi on this. He's just saying everyone should know their role, you know. And when your top order just collapses like that, and when you're Bangladesh and you know you're prone to collapse, automatically when the middle order they should not be thinking about swinging it. Your first job is to rescue the ship.
Like, we know the first 20 overs are hard, so maybe just see them off for the first 20 overs and try to hit them
But
the last 30 overs.
But at the same line,
Okay, here's the thing.
I understand Rinat's point that the
No.
finishers should also know their role because they have to bat till the 49th or 50th over, so they have to pace themselves accordingly. So I mean, I understand both sides of it. Yeah, Rinat.
Here's the thing. You can't see off four seamers all bowling over 140 coming at your body, you can't see that off. Like, it sounds really easy when you say it, that, oh, just see it off, just play it
No,
out.
you don't have to like listen to me. Just see how Shabir Saifuddin, they showed it how
No,
easy it was.
By
no,
that time,
okay.
ball was not swinging. Spinners had Santner had come on,
Exactly.
etc.
These guys came in by the time that all the frontline seamers were at the end of their spells. Okay, so, and credit to them that even then they were amazing. They were better than those that got out. But I'm just saying that it sounds very easy to see it, to say that why didn't they just see it off? I think they did try that in the first two games at least. They tried to see it off, and that
They
didn't
tried to
work.
see it up. It didn't work.
They I didn't see. Yeah, I think Mushi was
And in the third
as
game,
back. Mushi was all the way back at the crease, and there's only
That's
one
the ball he
reason why
got out.
I-
But the first ODI, he also came down the track once or
No,
twice.
no.
In the first
Mushi
ODI,
got out.
he
Mushi
scored.
got out. Mushi
got
got
out-
out in the first game because he was way back at the crease
Yes, but
when he should have been.
he scored a 4 by coming.
but he
down
did
the
come
track
down the
once.
track. Well,
And he
so
scored a
okay, so
4.
I think what we have to, I think that what I can say is that the reason that, okay, and I've mentioned this to Zimbabwe cricket fans, that you'll notice with Zimbabwe,
Do they have
and
any
this might
fans?
be, they have fans. Most of them are actually not Zimbabwean. They're other country
Okay.
cricket fans that just like Zimbabwe. But and I mentioned to them, they want their players to sweep against spinners, and sweeping and reverse sweeping. If you've noticed that, the Zimbabwe players love to reverse sweep. Like almost all of their top order love reverse sweeping. This is my opinion. I'm sure some people will agree, some will not. The sweep shot is not a bread and butter shot. Like there may be one or two players that are so proficient at it that they can play it like as a bread and butter. But sweeping is a very high risk shot. And I know this is completely digressing from our point, but because you can get out so many ways. You can get out LBW if the ball keeps low and you miss. You can get out LBW sweeping. You can get out bowled. You can inside edge onto the stumps.
I want to see how you link this back to.
This is going to be very, very roundabout. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try.
I'll figure
So
you.
the point is that sweeping is a very risky shot. So the Zimbabwean cricket fans, I was trying to explain to them that, well, the reason the Zimbabwe players sweep so much against spin is because they're uncomfortable playing spin with a straight bat. They don't have the technique to face spin and score at a healthy rate. So what they do is they attempt to sweep because you get runs that way, and you can also maybe throw the bowler off of his length. So what our players was doing was the fast bowling equivalent of that. They were trying to come down the way, or maybe being overly aggressive, because by playing high percentage cricket shots, they're not going to be able to score runs on that quality of bowling. I mean, Rinat mentioned they're bowling 140K, swinging the ball both ways, and there's some movement off the seam as well. So our players and our batsmen were incapable, at least in this series, of negotiating those deliveries in a safe manner. So what do they try to do? They're playing away from the body. Mushi came down the track. That shot may have been on. Like, he connected well. It was, went to the boundary. That's fine. But what Tamim played, terrible shot. Litan had no clue what was going on. Shommo.
Yeah. No, it's very good. You're getting like I said before, a whole different variety of views. Mufi thinks
Yeah.
it's approach. Rinat says it's nerves. You're saying it's more technique. So
I'm saying it's technique and ability. Our batsmen in this series did not they didn't have the ability to deal with that. Whereas you'll see a better batsman, a better batting team, like let's say for example India, they don't have to throw the bat. They'll get boundaries by playing crisp drives along the ground, or they'll hook and pull a ball that our players are ducking under because maybe they're not, it's too fast for them and they can't get into a position to hook or pull that ball. So. To me, it was a sign of ability. Now, what does that mean? That means that our players need to, they need to step it up. They need to train hard for the next 3 or 4 months, so this doesn't happen again in England, where the conditions may be similar to this.
Just one thing on that point, like the players that did score runs for us in this tour, Shabir, Mithun, or Saifuddin, none of them have very good techniques compared to Tamim or Mushi. But they were more successful than those batsmen. So I don't know if it was the technique. Like Mithun, for example, his technique is very, very questionable.
Okay, here's the
Well,
thing
by
though.
that
Okay,
time, by the time
so
Sabir and Mira
Sabir,
came in, by the time those guys,
Sabir in all three
so
innings actually started as an aggressive player. He did not start off slow by any means. I'm just gonna clear that out. I know that he played really well, but he didn't take time to get his eye in. He was out his like third or fourth delivery on the third game, which was an easy catch, and he played a needless
Yeah,
attacking shot.
he had a life. He had a drop catch.
Yeah. So
Very
I'm
good.
not gonna count the live because everyone gets lives, but I'm just saying it's not like Sabir was playing defensive when he started either. He was playing aggressive. His technique, his application was better, and that's why he got it, and the others didn't.
Hmm.
they also, Ria did mention earlier that also by the time Sabir came in, he was facing a different set of bowlers. So he
Exactly.
was
That
not
was my
facing
entire
bowlers
point. That the
without
first 15 to
swinging
20
swinging the
overs
new ball.
is not easy. So our seniors or top order should have done a lot better, like knowing that fact.
Yeah, they should have. I agree with you 100%.
I think we've talked a lot when we've gotten like different views. Uh, Mufi's approach and Rinat's point about nerves. Alfie, you're saying technique. I'm also going to throw in selection in there because I really wanted them to make the changes right after the first ODI and not keep the same combination for the second ODI. I thought that was a mistake, but I think we've approached it from like a lot of different angles, and there's a lot of issues to talk about, and maybe we'll talk about them in depth more in future. But as for now, I don't think it's possible to go lower than this. So hopefully, in our next ODI series, whenever that is, and we play in Ireland, right? For against New Zealand and Ireland. So,
Mm.
and those are similar
Against
conditions.
against West Indies in Ireland,
Oh,
not
sorry,
New Zealand.
West Indies and Ireland. Yeah,
Yeah.
against what would be pretty similar conditions to New Zealand, you could say,
Yeah.
and that will be, the litmus test. If we really learned anything, or are we doomed to repeat the same fate or not?
Uh,
We'll
I'm
find out.
I'm just gonna say really quickly that again, and I've said this in the chat that I think most of the teams right now, all the games they're playing, they're treating all these games as basically a preparation and as just trying to perfect their 14 and 15 member of their squads. I wouldn't take too much heart into that loss. I think Bangladesh did try hard on the third game, but I think just the fact that they're still trying to get the combination right. That's probably one of the reasons why they didn't change much from the first two failures.
Hmm.
Right? They still kept it going because they just want to have the absolute assurances about who they can trust and who they can't trust. Right? I think if we were taking this series seriously, Rubel wouldn't have been dropped for the first two games. I mean, you wouldn't see
Yeah.
that. And I think Liton and Shomo, like they got dropped before, they would have been dropped again. It's just the fact that they're trying to create some kind of stability. They're trying to identify those players that they can back. So I would say it's only gonna get better. And I understand that it's been a very frustrating series for us, but I think again
Really
treat it as a
optimistic.
treat it as a practice. Treat it as a
But I mean,
practice.
you do have to look at the one very big positive. We've been saying for a long time that the young guys haven't stepped up. Well, in this series, we had Saifuddin, Mitun, and Miraz. We had these fringe players, guys outside the core group, stepping up with the bat. And I didn't even mention Sabir. So
Hmm.
So
if we can
okay,
get
so Sabir and Miraz are not young players. Just saying, okay? They're like
Mitun,
they're
Mitun.
they're
Miraz
they're a
is young,
few years young.
very young.
Miraz
They're
is young.
few years
Miraz is
young.
in his
Miraz is
What I
young.
what I,
Sai
what I,
Buddin.
what I meant was players outside of the core
yeah.
group. The
Yeah,
big five. Then
Definitely.
we
definitely.
supporting players. We just don't have any supporting players. Well, this series we finally got some, and
Yeah.
and they were reasonably consistent. Mitun was consistent. Miraz was consistent. Saifuddin was consistent. Sabir was somewhat consistent. He had two decent scores. Um,
Hmm.
one good score and then another decent score.
Yeah.
Cool.
Another point that I kind of started mentioning was that this series loss hopefully will be alarm bells will go off, and the team's not going to be complacent going into the World Cup.
Yeah, we've heard that before. I don't know how true that is, but I mean, we can be optimistic. There's no harm in that. I think we should be optimistic because we can't do any worse. I think than this.
Yeah,
Uh, given our recent strong ODI showings, I'm comparing it to that. So compared to that, I think we have kind of underachieved this time. So we can
yeah.
only go up. And thanks, guys, for joining. There were other extracurricular activities as well. We could have talked about Shabu's celebration, whatever happened in locker room. But we're not going to go into that. I think we kept it to cricket, and it was a really good episode. So thanks, guys, for joining, and we will see you in the next one.